Okay, I want to show one more thing about this one. Notice that we got some sections here. Let me just see. Oh, this one has the sections taken out. That's good. That's good. I had some sections in there before, but I think this will be fine. So what I'm going to do with this one is show how we can split this into two different boxes. So we have this main content area and we've got a couple of sections. What I want to do is take this stuff in the inside of this main content area and break it into two columns. Okay, so to do that, let me just give this a different name. Those sections, and we'll call it 2. And for this one, let's here's our main content. So we'd have to add another div. Div ID equals left column, and close that. And let's take it to about here, and we'll close the div, and then we'll do another, and we'll say div ID equals right column, and close that, and then that'll close right down here. Okay, so maybe I should use these comments to make that really clear. Let's just cut and paste these to save a little bit of time. So this would close left column, and this would close right column. Okay, so then we got to go look at some CSS for that. So we've got our main menu or main content right about here. Under the main content, we have our left column and our curly brackets. And let's let's go ahead and do one of these and we can copy it. So what are we going to need? If it's 920 for the overall main content, why don't we say like 440 or something just to play it safe? So we have room for 2. So width, let's do position relative. And let's set width to 440, 430, play it safe, 430 pixels, px. And background color, let's make it light green. And let's do the same thing for the right column. Right column, and it's going to be light blue. Green and blue. And let's save it, and let's look and see what happened. In fact, let's look at it in Firefox. Let's preview. And here's our two columns. Okay, so let me shorten that up so you can see it in the video. They just went one right after the other. And this is how content behaves. And what I want to do is this right column that's light blue, I want it to be over here on the right. And so what I'm going to have to do to make that happen, I've got two ways. One is called absolute positioning, which I don't want to cover right now. And the other one is called floating. So I'm going to float those divs to the left. And let's just do that. And in fact, just to make this really clear, let's have a, we'll just call this good with just two columns. And I'll come up here to left column, and I'm going to do float left. And I'm going to do the same thing on this one. And we'll save, and we'll come in and refresh the screen, and here's where we get our collapse. It did float left. This first one floats left, the next one floats left, and if we had a third one, it would float left and be over here on the right if there was room for it. Otherwise, it goes down to the next line, to the next row. But the problem is our container has collapsed, because when you add floats inside of a container, the container collapses. So we're going to have to fix that. But before I fix that, as a way of explaining what's going on with these floats and something we're going to talk about called clears. Let's see if we can make this blue right-hand column go down to the next line. Okay, so what I'm going to do is for the right column, I'm going to say clear left. That means start a new row. And let's refresh the screen, and it does start a new row. So I could start rows anytime I wanted to just by using clear left, or another way to do it, because sometimes you're using float rights, you can do clear right, or you can do clear both. And let's save that and refresh the screen, and it works too. Okay, so that's a little bit of the background that might help you understand what we're going to do to fix this collapsed container. And I'll show you one way to do this. This is the simplest way to fix that. Our container is what's collapsed, right? So what we can do is go all the way down in our HTML to just before we close that container and put in this statement. It's going to be a div that is going to call a style, and that style will say clear both. And then we close that div. So this is an extra div. And I'm going to save that. And we'll see how it looks now. And refresh the screen, and it fixes the problem. Now, does it fix the problem? Well, you can see that there is, it did fix the wrapper is now, or the container is now non-collapsed, but things that probably should be floating that aren't floating have kind of fallen up to the top of the page. So let's fix that. Let's, for the main content, let's do a float left on it. And let's do the same thing with the footer. Let's see how things look now. Okay, it's looking better, but the footer is pretty short. It just is as big as it needs to be for the actual text, which isn't really attractive in a footer. So let's, instead of just giving it a height, let's give it a width also of 960, so it's the same as the rest of the site, the rest of the page. And refresh that. Looks pretty good. Now maybe we need a little margin so these two aren't really touching each other. So that's easy to do. Just in our right column we can say margin left 10 pixels, and let's see how that looks. If I can find it. Okay, so we have a little more room, and see the text running right into the very edge of that div on the light green here and on the light blue over here. Want a little bit of room. We want some room for that text. So that's where we'll add padding. So let's add a little padding. And I want that on both of these. Let's say padding. Why don't we just do generic padding of 10 pixels everywhere? That's going to be top, right, bottom, and left. And I'll just put that on both of these, save, and see how it looks. Okay, we still got room. We start making these much bigger, and this blue one's going to go down to the next row, so watch out for that. Okay, the next one I want to show is if you want, this is getting back to some that have a little bit of background going on, and images. So how are we doing these images? Let me walk you through that. Okay, so I have some images on this one. Let me go ahead and save this and show this in Firefox. There we go. So I've got a heading, I've got a little bit of content, a couple images. What I want to do is put this image integrated into this text, into this paragraph, so that it the paragraph kind of wraps around it in a nice way in the flow of the content. And this one I want to go over here on the left side. So let's see if we can get there. The first thing is, how did I get the images in there? Well, put them wherever you want, and you may have to play around a little bit, but I put them in after the heading. And what I did was a less than image source, that is the source of the image, is, and I'll do equals, and in quotes you put the name of the image, and this is just the name of an image I have in the same folder. And I always put in an alt, and let's just go to pure code so you can see that better. Alt, and the name of this is sculpture at KU, and then I close an image statement with a slash. That's how that's done. Okay, and I've got another one up here, same thing, sculpture 2 in this case. So now let's see if we can make them go into the content. So I'm going to do right here, I'm going to say image and then curly brackets, and we'll say float right, and we'll save, and we'll preview it. So now our images are floating in the right side of the content, which is pretty nice looking. It's not bad, and we could play with our margins and get that lined up a little bit better, but not bad. So what I want to do now is I want to make this one go to the left. Okay, so to do that we got to do a little more coding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this say image float right. Now notice I put a dot in there. That dot creates a class. Okay, whenever we see a dot, it's a class. And this will be float right, and then this one, let's copy that, will be image float left. And we'll say image float left here. And then let's go down to this image, and right there in the image tag we're going to say as an attribute, whenever I type something in here, it's going to be an attribute. One attribute was source equals, another one's going to be alt equals, another attribute will be class equals float right. And let's copy that, save a little typing and put that in and call it float left, and save and see if it worked. Yeah. Now one thing I'm noticing, this text is coming right up on the image here. It's not really attractive or readable, and depending on what your text is over here, it might do the same thing. So let's fix that. Just go back up to your CSS and pretty this up a little bit. And this one, since it's floating to the right, I'm going to say padding left 10 pixels. And this one we'll say is going to be padding right 10 pixels. And save and back and refresh the page. And now you can see there's a little more room here to read it. Nice little offset there. The other thing I notice here, this footer is pretty short and the text is not centered. I want that to be centered in this div, this orange div. So let's do that. Footer, let's pretty this up. And let's say height is 50 pixels. And let's do align text center and save. No, it's text align, I think. text align. Easy to mix those up. There we go. And if you want, you can put a little padding on the top of that text. So let's do that. Padding top 5 pixels. Save. Beware though that when you add padding or margin to any div, it increases the size of the div. So you may want to play around with that a little bit. Okay, so we've done floats in divs, we've done floats with images, we've added some margin and padding as necessary. I think we're getting up to about 15 minutes, 16 minutes though, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this one. And the next thing I want to do is show you how you can create a couple of different pages, use the same CSS, one CSS file for let's say 2 or 3 different pages, and have the menus stay current so that you've got dynamic highlighting on whatever the current page is.